What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. If you end up wanting to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where we'll be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. Now, before we actually get into the phone itself, let's take a look at what comes in the box. So in this little packet right here, we got pretty much the normal stuff, a quick start guide, SIM card removal tool right here. And in here, we also got a USB-C cable and a really powerful fast charger too. So definitely impressive. At this point in 2023, a lot of phones don't even have a wall adapter, whereas with this phone, we're not only getting a wall adapter, but again, it is a really powerful fast charger. So definitely great value. But moving on to the phone itself, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, we're getting a 6.72-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 391, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So definitely a great display here in pretty much every way. The only kind of disappointing thing is, compared to the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, I believe that phone had an AMOLED display, whereas again with this phone, we are getting an IPS LCD, which is not quite as good, but at the same time it still does look nice. The 1080p resolution gives us a nice sharp crisp image. The colors and brightness look good in general, and despite the viewing angles not being quite as good as like an AMOLED, again for the most part, I would say it looks pretty good. For storage, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion too, so definitely plenty of storage here. And I feel like most people could probably get by with even like 64. So overall, for the average user, I would say the storage on this phone is pretty good. For security features, the OnePlus Nord N30 5G does have Face Unlock, and it also has a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key. So not quite as premium as its predecessor that had an in-display fingerprint scanner, but definitely still practical. So let's give it a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, this phone does have Face Unlock too, so definitely nice to get both options. Now taking a look at the camera here, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, up front, we get a nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we get a triple camera setup with a really impressive 108 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, definitely a pretty good camera setup here. Kind of disappointing that there's no ultra wide camera, but the OnePlus Nord N20 5G didn't have one either, and even in this price range for whatever reason, there are several phones that don't have ultra wide cameras either, so overall can't really say I'm that surprised, but at the same time, if you were hoping for an ultra wide camera, then again, just keep in mind, you will be a little disappointed here. But aside from not having an ultra wide camera, again, it at least does have a macro camera, and not only that, but at 108 megapixels, the main camera is surprisingly impressive here. So if you are looking to take really good regular photos and maybe you don't really care about the ultra wide camera that much, then I do think this will be a good camera setup for you. Now, considering this is a first impressions video, I haven't actually used the camera yet, but in general, I am expecting the photo quality to be at least pretty good here. So definitely stay tuned for my later videos, where we'll have several photo and video samples. And speaking of video, keep in mind, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, this phone does have a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so unfortunately no 4K here, but considering this phone is going for around $299, when it comes to newer phones at least, there really aren't that many phones in this price range that can record 4K videos anyway, so I'm not really too surprised. But just keep in mind, if you're maybe recording a lot of videos and you want that higher resolution, then you might want to spend a bit more and get something a bit higher end. Now for the RAM and processor, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, this phone has 8GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. So on one hand, not really a new processor. I've seen several phones that have it, including the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G and Boost Mobile's Celero 5G Plus. So in general, nothing really crazy or anything. But at the same time, if you are looking for something for overall more basic activities, but you still want something decently fast, I would say for stuff like web browsing, social media, watching videos, listening to music, and maybe some light mobile gaming, for that sort of activity, it will definitely get the job done. But if you're going to be on your phone a bit more doing more demanding activities, you might want to spend a bit more and get something a bit faster. But I do think overall for the average user, the performance on this phone will be plenty good enough. Now I ran a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of where this phone stands performance-wise compared to your current device, because of course, depending on what you have right now, it may or may not actually be an upgrade. If you're coming from something like a Samsung Galaxy S10 for example, that's a bit older but at the same time a bit higher end, then chances are this phone won't necessarily be an upgrade. But if you're coming from a typical mid-range phone, then this might actually be a pretty good upgrade for you. But overall, again, I feel like for the average user, for more normal daily use, this phone will at least get the job done. Now for the battery, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 50-watt fast charging. So definitely an impressive battery here. First of all, at 5000 mAh, although this is definitely not uncommon at all. In fact, at this point in 2023, a 5000 mAh battery in a mid-range phone is pretty much the standard. But that being said, just keep in mind, with this phone like many others, you can expect to get really good battery life. So if you are in a situation where you're not really around to charge a whole lot, but you still need to use your phone all day, with a 5000 mAh battery, you won't have to worry about running out of battery in the middle of the day. And with 50-watt fast charging, the fast charging on this phone is significantly better than you're gonna find on pretty much any other mid-range phone. And again, remember, when you get this phone, you actually do get a fast charger that is included, so you don't even have to go buy one yourself. You can take full advantage of the phone's fast charging pretty much right away. So in general, if battery life, charging speed, and really just overall longevity is important to you, then this phone will be a great choice. For the software, the OnePlus Nord N30 5G does have Android 13, and knowing OnePlus's software support, it's definitely not nearly as good as, say, Samsung or Google, for example. But at the same time, I imagine it will at least get one major update in the future. So if you want to get Android 14 down the road, I'm sure it will at least get that. But if you really want a lot of major updates, kind of like you get with a Samsung or a Pixel phone, then for you, a OnePlus might not be the best choice. But if you just want the newest version of Android and at least decent software support and security updates and stuff like that, then in that case, this phone will at least be okay. In addition to this phone also has NFC too, so if you like to use tap and pay, you won't have to worry about that either. But in conclusion, my overall first impressions of the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. In general, I feel like this phone is maybe not necessarily super unique or anything when it comes to stuff like the display, the storage, performance, and software support. I would say it's definitely not bad, but for a mid-range phone around $300, it's pretty much what I would expect. That being said though, a couple of areas that are particularly impressive are, first of all, despite again having the same 5000 mAh battery you typically find in a mid-range phone, the fast charging is really impressive. I mean, with 50-watt fast charging, you don't even typically find that in a higher-end device, let alone a phone like this. So on one hand, I don't think fast charging is necessarily a reason someone would go way out of their way to buy a phone, but at the same time, it is definitely a nice thing to have. And in addition to this, the main camera, although again, I haven't actually personally used it yet, at 108 megapixels, I am expecting some really nice photo quality. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has pretty good performance, a really nice display, plenty of storage, a great camera, and a really good battery too, then this phone is definitely worth considering. But this concludes my first impressions video for the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. Again, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, I will be making lots of videos about it in the near future, so definitely stay tuned for that. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Khalipa's Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.